Hello again. Now we're back here to continue our series on the judgments, and we've been uploading some videos on that, and we're gonna upload it. The couple of one we uploaded the one that the event that had to take place before the first judgment, and that was the rapture. The last one we did last week was the first of the last three judgments, which was the judgment of the saints, of the church, of the bride, of the body. Different words used to describe that judgment. And we talked about that one and where it would be and when it would be. So that's the first of the last three judgments, the judgment of Christians, and we said that take place in heaven during the tribulation time. And we're going to pick up the second of the last three judgments. So there's the judgment of the saints. The second one is what we're going to talk about today is the judgment of the nations. Now this judgment is the second of the last three, and it takes place on earth. And this judgment is going to be in two parts. So we're going to take this in two parts because there's two separate judgments here on earth, just going to see who go into the kingdom. So God is doing this, the Lord is doing this in two stages. And we'll look at when this judgment takes place and who's being judged and then and what group is first. And I'll just tell you, the first group is going to be the Jewish people and then the Gentiles, but they're all going to be done at the same time period, but they're going to be done in order. The Jews first, then the Gentiles next. And we'll see this takes place, Matthew chapter 24, the key to understanding this second judgment, the judgment of the nations. And 24 and 25 is those chapters specifically are talking about the judgment of the nations. What I mean by that is the separation of all the lost and saved that's left alive at the end of the tribulation. That's what I'm talking about, the judgment of the nation. That's what this judgment is. And it takes place at the end of the tribulation. And we're planning to see that when we read through here. We'll make that point to make sure we set when this judgment takes place. It's on earth in the time frame. So we'll get that set up. And we'll talk about that first. So we can be in Matthew chapter 24. If you don't understand Matthew chapter 24 and 25 correctly, if you don't do it in the proper time frame, you will confuse what this is talking about. I will tell you that a lot of people think that Matthew chapter 24 is talking about the rapture of the church. We'll tell you that's not true, and we'll prove that in just a little bit here. It's not the rapture of the church in Matthew chapter 24. So let's see what sets the stage for this judgment. We're going to set the stage how to understand 24 and 25 of Matthew. Matthew chapter 24 and 25 is the understanding is set by chapter 24, 1 through 3. You have to understand what's going on in order to interpret these chapters right. So I'll read 24, 1 through 3 just to set what brought this conversation about and why this being explained like this. So Matthew 24, 1, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, see you not all these things? Verily I say unto you that there shall not be left here one stone upon another that should not be thrown down. And as he sat up on the Mount of Olives, his disciple came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of their coming and the end of the world, or the end of the age? End of the world is the word age. So we see Jesus made a statement here at the beginning of 24. They showed him the temple, and he said, you see, they got one stone left up another going to be here. All these stones going to be tore down. It's not going to be one left up on another. And he says, that then when he said that, the disciples later on approached him and said, well, when is this going to take place? So they really asked them three questions to tell you how to understand Matthew chapter 24 and 25. Three questions are the key to understand these two chapters. The first thing they asked, tell us when shall these things be? That's the first question they want to ask them. And what shall be the sign of their coming? That's the second thing they asked him. And the end of the world, or the end of the age, is the third thing. So everything in 24 and 25 has to do with answering those three questions. The three questions they posed him, Jesus is answering that in 24 and 25. Those two chapters got to do with specifically those three questions. Now we're going to cover everything he said, because we're talking about the actual judgment that's going to take place in this section. But it's set by those questions. So when you read these chapters, understand he's answering those three questions, and everything in those two chapters is tied to those three questions. He answered one of those three questions. So we're talking about the judgment. Now, this judgment of the saints is set take place in chapter 24 and 25. But the first group is going to judge is going to be the Jewish people. The Jews are going to be the first group that's judged. Now, this take place at the end of the tribulation. It's set during the tribulation time period, and we'll prove that by reading a couple of verses to prove the time period we're talking about. So in 24:21 it said, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not from the beginning of the world until this time, nor shall ever be." See that word tribulation, great tribulation? So this telling us the time period that he's talking about. He's talking about the tribulation time period. And another verse just to prove that the time period Jesus is speaking of is the tribulation. Because in 29 it said, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall it be sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken." So we understand this is the tribulation he's talking about, the tribulation time period, the great tribulation, and immediately after the tribulation of those days, towards the end. It's telling you it's at the end time of the tribulation. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read 29 all the way through 35. And then talk a little bit about that. And we'll take this in two sections. So we'll go back to here, but 29. "Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and glory. And he shall send his angel with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the one end of the heaven to the other. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When the branch is yet tender and putteth forth its leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, ye, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away." All right, now Jesus is dealing with this time period. He's talking about the end of the tribulation. This is immediately after the tribulation of those days. So he's saying this is at the end time, the last part of it. And then he talked about a sign that shall appear. The moon going to be darkened, and the stars going to fall, and the sign of the Son of Man. That's in reference to when shall these things be, and what's going to be the sign of your coming. See, he's talking about that. They're part of those three questions. And you're going to come in the clouds with power and in glory. And he shall send his angel with the sound of the trumpet. They shall gather together his elect, in verse 31, from the four winds, from the end of the one end of heaven to the one end of the heaven to the other. So he's saying, at the end of the tribulation, when I come, I'm going to gather up all my elect. The elect is talking about all saved people that live through the tribulation. That's what the elect is. Everybody that got saved during the tribulation. There are no Christians at the beginning of the tribulation, but there are people that are saved during the tribulation, and they are the elect. So the word elect is talking about all saved people that live and make it all the way through the tribulation to the end. That's what the elect group is. That's every person that got saved in the tribulation that didn't get killed and that's still living. So that's the group he's going to collect. So he will gather from one end all over the earth, one end of the heaven to the other, and that means under the earthly heaven they're going to be gathered up. So, and he told, 32 just said, now, that's the thing, these signs that he talked about was, you see these things happening, you know it's close. Because he said, now learn the parable of the fig tree. He gave a nature example. When the branch is yet tender and put a forth leaf, you know that something is not. He said, just like you know something is coming and it's going to come in the spring and some is heading in, the trees start blooming. When you see these signs, you know this thing is close. That this coming and gathering up my elect is close. So he's making a comparison. Like you see the trees on blooming on the tree, you know, for some is coming, gonna be some fruit bearing. When you see these signs, the earth being shaken, stars fall from heaven, he's talked about that in 29. When you see these things happen, you know it's close to me coming and gathering up all my elect. That's what he's saying. And so he used the fig tree instant parable to talk about that. That's why he said, likewise, when you see all these things. Now, no, he said all these things. He didn't say just one thing. When you see all the things I talked about in chapter 24 all the way up to now, everything he said I talked about up to now, when you see all this, not some of it, all of it, the birth that to see every last one. In other words, you have to be knowing about every last one of these events before he come to get them. All these events must take place is the idea before he come. Now we know the temple was thrown down in 7 AD, but that wasn't all the events he talked about. You got to see every last one of them. So the person that's alive and know about all the events that can happen will be the one that would be gathered up, that's saved and will be gathered up. So he said, when you see all of them, all these things, you know they're there even at the door. You'll know it's real close, it's fitting to happen. That's why in 34 he said, verily I say to you, this generation, see that little phrase, this generation? Shall not pass away till all these things be fulfilled. This generation is talking about the what? The generation that see all these things. The one that in 33, that's the group he's saying won't die before they all come to pass. The generation that see all the things, that know about all these events, they'll still be living when he finally come together of all his elect. Because they're the one that will see the end of all the signs. If you're living when the last sign is fulfilled, you'll be alive when he comes. That's what he's saying. He says, so that this generation not pass all the things but fulfilled. So everything I talked to y'all about through the whole chapter 24, I won't come to every last one of those things to fulfill. That's the point he's making. And so all these things take place. The last of these signs take place in the tribulation. He's just said tribulation, great tribulation. So we know the last of them going to be fulfilled in the tribulation. That's the generation to see the last of the signs being fulfilled, and we be alive when he comes. And so he said, you won't pass away. And so the tribulation is only a 7-year period. So when the Lord starts doing the last part of these signs, you only have to live 7 years to see the end of them. So it's not a long time. And so he's saying one that live through it, don't get killed and see me fulfill the stars falling from heaven, there's moon been shaken, the earth been darkened. That's how it would be living when I come. They'll be alive to see these signs. So he said, and they not pass away, but heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. He said, now, it's a guarantee that what I said is going to happen. The way he said all this is going to take place is exactly how it's going to take place. So he said, don't make no mistake, heaven and earth shall pass away. So he's going to gather up all the elect, every saved person that's not killed during the tribulation, and he's going to gather them all up. He's going to gather all the elect, and they're going to be separated. The saved going to be gathered and separated from the lost. That's the idea. Because it's living saved people at the end of tribulation, and it's living lost people at tribulation. Now, since he said he's going to gather them all up, now he's going to talk about separating them, separating the saved from the law. So the next section, he's going to provide who he separate, what's going to be going on that when he come, what the sign that proves what time period he in. So my wife's going to read 36 through 44.
But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, out of my Father only, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doeth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what hour what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then?
Okay, that's good. So for the 44, so you see him talking about you're going to gather them up down through 36. Then it's going to be a separation. Now he said, no man know exactly when this is going to take place, 36, 37, 38. He said the world going to be going on like normal. Now he compared this time of separation to the days of Noah. He said, as in the days of Noah. So the comparison he's making is the world was going on, not paying attention, not thinking about God, living in open sin, doing all kind of evil stuff when he came in Noah's day. So they're going to be going about their normal life, no thought of God. That's the comparison he's making. So, but it is making a point. It's like the days of Noah when he comes, people are going to be acting similar to that. Now, the point when he made special position to the days of Noah, because when he get down to the one being taken and the one left, he's making sure no one is confused about who's taken and who's left. This cannot be the rapture. A lot of people want to make this one taken, one left in verse 40 and 41 the rapture. That is not true. It cannot be, because it's like the days of Noah. The comparison to the one being taken and one left is exactly what happened in Noah, that he's making a direct comparison, so no one is confused about what happened during this event. Now, all a person got to do is ask themselves, in the days of Noah, who was taken and who was left? In the days of Noah, the flood took away all the lost and drowned them. And the saved was left in the ark. So the one taken was lost, the one left was saved. So it can't be the rapture, because the rapture, the ones taken are saved and the ones left are lost. It cannot be. It has to be. So the ones taken here are the ones that's got rid of. The one that's not going to the kingdom. The ones left is the one that's going to be going to the kingdom. It was opposite in the days of Noah. The days of Noah, the lost was drowned and got off the planet, and Noah and them stayed alive and stayed. Now, so he's saying it's going to be like the days of Noah. So when you get to 41, and because he said they're going to be just doing 39, and you not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall it come to the Son of Man. They'll be doing their thing, no thought of God, no, not worried about it, won't believe he's coming. That's the idea. They didn't believe Noah's preaching. People won't believe at the end of the tribulation for the most part neither. But so he'll come. Now, when it said, then two shall be in the field, the one taken and one left, right? The two in the field. The one that's taken is lost. The one left is saved. That's the point. That's the separation idea. Two shall be grinding in the mill, and one shall be taken, and the other left. That's how people are going to be going about their normal lives. Some are going to be saved, some are going to be lost. At the end of the tribulation, all lost people ain't going to be dead, and all saved people ain't going to be dead. So he got to separate the lost and saved from each other at the end of the tribulation, because he getting ready to start a kingdom now. The kingdom after the arena start after that. So he take the lost one and lead the saved one, because that's what happened in Noah's day. The lost ones were taken off the earth, the saved ones were left. So that should tell you this is not the rapture. It's the separation of the saved and lost at the end of the tribulation to see who going into the kingdom. So he going to separate saved and lost. And he said, now, if a good man, if they've been paying attention, they'd have been ready. The idea is make sure you're ready, because he make that last point, therefore, in 44, therefore be you also ready, for in such an hour that you think not the Son of Man come. He said the key to it it's going to be like the day of the Lord. Make sure you're ready when I come, so you can go into the kingdom. That's what he said. Be ready. Be ready for me to come. So the idea is make sure you're ready. The group that's leaving at this time, he said, you better make sure you're ready for me. And the only way you're going to be ready, you got to know these signs and pay attention and get saved and get in on it. So the idea is be prepared. So he said, you don't know, nobody know, anybody say they know what's going to happen in this line. He plain said, nobody know but his Father in heaven. He make that plain. So he said, therefore be such how you think not the Son of Man comes. So be ready, because you don't know when it's going to happen. Now he's talked about he's going to gather them up. Then it's going to be a separation. Now, in 45 through 51, he's going to talk about the first group that's going to be separated. Man, he gathered all the saved and the lost, and then he's going to separate the saved from the lost. But what's the first group that's going to be separated? It's going to be saved and lost Jews, and it's going to be saved and lost Gentiles. God only see the world in two groups of people. You know, as God deal with them, he deal with the Jews and what we call the Gentiles. But so this time, he gonna deal with what he called his servants. When we read here, he's gonna be the servant word is the key for the Jewish people. Because when I pick up in 45, he's gonna say, but who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom the Lord has made ruler over his house to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom the Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say to you that he shall make him ruler over all his good. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delay his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat, drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware, and shall cut him asunder, and upon his portion with the hypocrite there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So it's going to be a separation. The first group he's going to separate is the servant. It's talking about the Jewish people, the saved Jewish people from the lost Jews. He's separating his Jewish family. The reason why the tribulation is a Jewish time period. It's the time of Jacob's trouble. The last 7 years of the tribulation is fulfilled in the 70 weeks they had in captivity, in 69 in Babylon. This is a Jewish fulfillment of the Jewish prophecy to finish dealing with the Jews. So this is the Jewish time period. That's why he's dealing with the Jewish human Jews first, because this is finishing up his prophecy and promise and dealing with them to punish them for that 70 years that he's sent into Babylon for not letting the land lay. He got 10 years for each year they didn't let it lay. So this is what doing. So it's a Jewish time period. So he deal with the Jews first. The servants are human Jews, his earthly human family that he was born into. That's what it's talking about. But all of them ain't saved. So you got wise servants, right, that's doing the right thing. You got evil servants that's not saved, Jews, doing wrong thing. So you're going to separate saved Jews from lost Jews. That's all he's saying in 45 down through 51. He's going to separate the saved Jews from the lost Jews. That's what he's doing. Save human Jews from lost human Jews that living at the end of the tribulation. That's what, so the Jews are the first group. That's why the judgment of the nations in two parts. The nation of Israel is first to be judged, separated. Then the Gentiles is second. So he makes the point. He said, now you ought to be doing right. The Lord let serve if he begin to eat and spite his fellow servant, live in sin, ain't saved, do wrong, act like he don't believe the Lord coming. That's the idea. The Lord let servant shall come, and when the day when he looking not for him, and shall that he's not aware of. And he's going to point his presence. Now he said, if you're doing right, he's going to make him ruler over it. Verse 47, well, I say to you, you shall make him ruler of all his goods. The wise servant that live, we get to go into the kingdom and have an opportunity to be in charge, to rule, and have some duties and some say-so and some blessings. But the one that's doing evil won't make it in. He's going to be cut off. And that's what he's saying in the last part of 51. And 40, 50, and 51. The Lord, that servant shall come in the day when he look not for him, in the hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder. And upon his portion with the hypocrite, there should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. He's talking about separating saved Jews from lost Jews. And the saved Jews will go in, the lost Jew will be gotten rid of. So that's the point he's making. So what he's saying is, make sure you're ready, make sure you're prepared, make sure that you're looking for me, because if you're not looking for me, I'm going to come in a time you think not, and I'll cut you off, and then you're going to be out. The last part, cut off Sunday, and upon his portion with the hypocrites, there should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Weeping and gnashing of teeth is talking about punishment. The lost Jews that don't get saved in tribulation will be cast out. Weeping and gnashing of teeth is the idea of going to hell and suffering forever. That's the point he's making. So he's warning his own people, Jews. You better make sure if you're living at this time, you better make sure you accept me. You ready for me? Because just because you're Jew don't mean you go into the kingdom. It's going to be based on whether you accept the Lord and pay and do what he tell you to do as his child. But so he cut them off. He appointed them to hypocrite. Now that's what he does. He separates the saved and lost Jews, and the lost Jews get cast out of the kingdom. They won't go into hell at this time. Gonna be the lake of fire later on, and the saved Jews get to go in. So he's warning: be ready, be paying attention. If you living when you see these things, you better make sure you're ready when I come back. And you know me, you done got yourself right. So the first group here, we see the separation of the nation. If there's in two parts, the Gentile nation of Israel is separated first. Lost Jew from saved Jew. The warning is make sure you're ready. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure if you see these things, you better be ready because I'm coming. And I'm going to separate my servants, Jews, saved Jews from lost Jews. And so the saved Jews going to the kingdom, the lost Jews are got rid of. That's the point he's making in the last part of 24. Now, when we get to 25, we're going to be talking about the second part of the judgment of the nation, which is the Gentiles, which is separate. The Jews are first. Then the Gentile nations are judged separate from them because it's a Jewish time period. The church age is the Gentile time period that ended after the rapture. We talked about it a few weeks ago. This is a Jewish time period, and he's going to deal with them first. So next week, we'll be covering the parable of the inversion and getting to the sheep and goats, which is really talking about the Gentile separation. So that's what 24 is all about. But both chapters are dealing with the three questions. You know, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of their coming? And when going to be the end of the world? And both chapters are dealing with that. So this was the separation of the Jews, the servants, and they are separated according to Sauce and say, like everybody else would be. And it's as the days of Noah at the end of the tribulation, when it's going to take place. It'll plainly tell you when it's at. So don't be confused by thinking that the rapture is in chapter 24. It's not. This is a judgment of human beings on earth at the end of the tribulation to see which saved Jews go into the kingdom, and later on, which saved the saved Jews go into the kingdom, the lost Jews don't go. Later on, going to be the saved Gentiles going in, the lost Gentiles. So it separates saved and lost at the end of the tribulation in two groups, Jews and Gentiles. So we did the Jews. Next week we'll do the Gentiles and the judgment of their nation just before the millennial reign starts. So that's what we wanted to give you to make sure the rapture is not here. Don't confuse yourself. If you think the rapture is here, you will not interpret the Bible correctly. That's why you need to know that this is the end of tribulation. It's about separating human beings. It's not about going to heaven. It's about going into the 1,000-year reign on earth with Jesus. So that's what we wanted to give you, and we'll cover the second part of this second judgment, which is the judgment of the Gentiles.